It's been another busy week of tournaments in EU, and I want to discuss them all in this video. I'll talk about the duo have been absolutely dominating every event, and why Mongrel didn't end up playing the squad's Victory Cup. Let's get straight into it. So let's start by going back to Tuesday, when we had the Performance Evaluation Cup. We had 4 teams win games in that. Dom and Demus were one of them. If you watched my most recent EU review, you'll know that these guys are in really good form. They won 2 games in last week's Duo Victory Cup, and then won 2 games in the Squad Victory Cup the day after that, so they are really doing well in the Simpsons season. Dom and Demus are going to have the same expectations as top tier 1 pros in 2026. I'm going to be holding them to the same standards as I was players like Vico, like Chap, like Malabuka, because they are top pros. We also had Howley and Lucia win a game, a very good Russian duo. Shark and Teeny continuing their great form from last season by winning a game. Zyke and Tyrio also won a game. They're not a team that I know too much about. I'll be looking out for their names on future leaderboards. Moving on to Wednesday, we had the first round of the solo series. If you don't know how this tournament works, there's 2 rounds of qualifiers, each one being formatted like a cash cup, except there's no money prizes, and we had the first one of those qualifiers on Wednesday. It ended up being won by Halekis, the Russian pro, credit to him, so he's in a great spot to qualify for the final. The final in question being an hour of Victory Cup games on the 24th. If I'm honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this tournament. I do feel like for the amount of solos these players are playing, there probably should be a bigger reward at the end than just 1 hour of tournaments, but I am happy with seeing solo tournaments this season. I'm glad Epic are putting them on despite the cheating issue, more on that later. So yeah, I'm grateful for these tournaments. Do I wish it was a bit more money? Yes, but it's only for 1 season, and hopefully Chapter 7 will bring better prize pools. You'll notice Kurama, known as one of the best solo players in the EU, finished 8th in this tournament. He did much better than that on NA Central, managing to come 3rd in the first round of the solo series. We also had Scroll, another EU pro, coming in 14th. Once again, these players showing that they can do well on high ping, and it's always Kurama and Scroll. I feel like we constantly see these 2 players doing well on NA Central. I definitely think as a community we need to give more credit to the EU pros that do well on NA Central, because it's only a handful of them and it's always the same names that do well. It's very impressive to play so consistently on high ping in the early hours of the morning, so fair play to these players. Also, a very minor complaint, but I do wish they'd given this tournament a different name, because in my mind when I think of solo series, I think of the event from last season that Teeny won, and I feel like if we call everything the solo series, then the previous event kind of loses its meaning, if you get what I mean. Not a major point, just something that I've been thinking. On to Thursday, and we had the PlayStation Reload Cup. I'll be real, I didn't actually watch this. I didn't have the time, unfortunately, but Kian and Specs managed to win, so fair play to them. But on to a tournament that I definitely did watch, and that was the €1,000 Chess Arena Victory Cup. The tournament consisted of 4 games, each of them won by some pretty notable pros. We had Trulex and Chicho win game 1, another Balkan duo of Haris and Skavi win game 2, Swizzy and Pixie won game 3, and Vico and Malabuka won game 4. This was definitely my favourite tournament of the week because it was a set lobby finals. Obviously with most of these Victory Cups there's more than 40 teams that qualify, so there's lots of lobbies going on at once, and whilst that is exciting, I do personally just prefer set lobbies. There are a couple of noteworthy teams in this tournament. We saw Panzer playing with Zarbi. Obviously this is just a team for fun because Panzer now appears to be playing with Murstache. I do think that could end up being a permanent duo. We also saw Pix play with Wox. Now I put out a tweet the other day saying that I thought both of these players were great pickups and whoever picked them up would do well in the future. I wrote that I didn't really see Pix and Wox sticking. Since then they have seemingly split. Wox ended up playing the Duo Victory Cup with Zarbi, whilst Pix played with Veek. I did do a little fun prediction on maybe who these players could play with in 2026. I thought Pix and Franek might work. Pix obviously someone who leads, more of an IGL type player, while Franek definitely a fragger, so maybe that could work. I also thought Pig and Wox, maybe we could see that duo return. Ping has been doing well with Kiro, been a bit quiet in the Simpsons season, but the season before they were doing great, so I don't think there's any reason for them to split yet. That's all just speculation though. Who knows who these players are going to be playing with come FNCS. Right, now we're on to Saturday when we have the Duo Victory Cup. Now before I go any further, I should say there are a lot of cheaters over this weekend. NA Central in particular was absolutely plagued by cheaters. There were a lot on EU too. So whilst I will be talking about these tournaments, bear in mind that they were kind of ruined. Like, A lot of players missed out on wins that they deserved because of cheaters. So whilst I give credit to the players that did do well, just remember that maybe some of the ones who didn't, it wasn't necessarily their fault. But with that being said, there's one team that I want to give huge credit to, and yet again it features Kurama. If you're a regular watcher of the EU review, you'll know how much I like Kurama. There isn't really a video that goes by where I don't mention him. I just think he's a brilliant player, and he proved that again by winning opens with Akiira and then managing to win 2 out of the 3 games in finals and getting a 3rd place. Super impressive stuff. If this pair can ever translate their performances in open tournaments to set lobbies, then they will be one of the best teams in EU. Indeed, if I had to have one criticism of this team, it's that in the set lobby finals they don't look quite as good. They really seem to have figured out the formula for doing well in opens, and we see that every time. One of them is always on top of the leaderboard. But in the set lobby finals, the performances haven't quite been there. Back in Major 3 of this year, I did predict Akiira, Kurama and Werex to make globals. Unfortunately, they fell short in that round. We had 0 French players at globals this year, and if you ask me, there's no way that'll be repeated next year. We will 100% see some French players, and I don't think there's any French players better than this pair. There was one other team that managed 2 wins in finals, and that was Cringe and Volko. They also streamed the whole thing, so credit to them. These guys weren't a million miles away from making globals last year, and I reckon they're going to have a good 2026. Before I talk about NA Central, there was one other duo that interested me. We ended up seeing Scroll playing with Pixovsky. Sky was away, I think at some kind of party or something. Just thought that was quite an interesting duo to pick out. We did have some European teams earn on NA Central. Scroll and Zany managed to win. We also saw Zangi and Gabix, the Italian duo, manage a victory royale, as did Seek and Zayko, the French team, as did Voslo and Clement. And shout out to Queasy, who is currently in Dallas, but obviously is still an EU pro. He managed to win with Curly. Now let's move on to Sunday with the Squad Victory Cup. Now the first thing I have to say about this is I was surprised by how many teams stuck. I kind of thought that the squads would change every week, that players would just play with whoever they felt like on the day, but no, the vast majority of teams were the same as last week. Although with that being said, there were 2 squads that managed 2 wins in finals, and one of them was a completely new team. That was Acer, Jew, Phantom and Mumsy. Quite an interesting mix of players there. You've got an Austrian, a German, a Saudi Arabian and a French player. I do enjoy when we have multinational teams like this. The dynamics are quite interesting. It doesn't happen too often in the EU because players naturally like to stick with their country mates for language reasons, for other reasons, but it's always interesting when that gets broken. It's also really nice to see Phantom getting good team options since he came over from Middle East. I really hope Phantom isn't the last player to move from one of the smaller regions. I'd love to see some OCE players, some Asia players come to EU and tear it up, just like players have done in the past, the likes of Swizzy, Shimoki and Swilliam. But anyway, enough of that, let's get back to the tournament, and you'll never guess who the other team that managed to win 2 games were. That was, you guessed it, Akiira, Kurama, Skyjump and Werex. I don't think I need to say anything more about this team. I think you know my thoughts on these players by now. We also saw Pradaj win a game after coming second countless times last week. I really enjoy watching Pradaj. It's really refreshing to see a player like him, the way he commands his teammates, really taking on that IGL role with such passion. He is a pleasure to watch. Pradaj is one of those great personalities that doesn't quite get the spotlight he deserves. Maybe that's because he's from EU and not NA. I do feel like a lot of the clips that get circulated in the Fortnite community are quite American centric, so a lot of the EU things, a lot of the EU players, whilst they are funny, whilst they are entertaining, don't get kind of spoken about enough. Anyway, Pradaj, great player, even better streamer, glad he got the win. Let's do a quick little Savage and Mongrel update. Been kind of a quiet week for Mr. Savage. He looked very good with Yapko previously. This week he's not looked bad by any means, but they haven't been tearing it up as they were. Savage, Yapko, Seti and Panzer failed to get a win in this Squad Victory Cup. Mongrel didn't even end up playing it. He's actually out in Los Angeles at the moment at the Epic event, possibly getting to play Chapter 7 early. That meant that the previous squad we saw last week of Mongrel, Mixon, Giras and Franek split up. We saw Mixon playing with Blaze, Blaha and Kebsio, whilst Giras played with his ex-teammates Dinas and Franek, as well as Fyron. And just to quickly run over 2 other new squads, we saw Dandapuzo, Velry and Hizix team up with Queasy, whilst Veno, Pink, Sato and Uppel played. Previously that squad included Mumsy, but he was swapped out for Veno. Veno and Chino is also looking kind of up in the air at the moment. I don't know if we're going to be seeing that duo again in the new season. I think it's just going to be a case of waiting and seeing, because no one can really predict at this time. Pablo Wingy's been playing with Chino a lot. Do I think Pablo will go back to Frodoxy? Do I think Veno will go back to Chino? It's impossible to say. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. Just before I end, I want to highlight 2 EU teams that did well in the NA Central Squad Victory Cup. We had the all-Italian squad of Ricky, Belusi, Zara and Zangi get a win, whilst Gordetti, Voslo, SS Double and Bobby Albanus also managed the Victory Royale. So that's the EU review for this week. I've gone over all the tournaments and I hope you guys found it useful. If you like videos like this, then please leave a comment, tell me what you thought of it. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. See you in the next one.